Good evening, everyone. It is a privilege once again to be in this place, the headquarters of the Theosophical Society, as it has always been the will of students to acknowledge the spiritual line of descent, and as our subject matter was introduced by Madame Blavatsky in the 1875, when she brought out to the world the teachings of the great spiritual masters. It is important that we acknowledge her as a pioneering spirit, although later another teacher, through Alice Bailey, gave a great philosophical appreciation of the seven rays. So our subject matter is a very useful and helpful subject matter in the pursuit of the journey towards self-realization. It is interesting that human beings have, for millions of years, occupied this planet and have investigated all the environment in which they breathe, live, and have their being, to the point where they started polluting it. And as we know, planet Earth is going through a very serious crisis at this time, and I'm sure you are all aware of that. We have studied quasars, the sunspots, sent men to the moon, made rockets that can destroy our very lives. Yet about the inner life and about who we are and what we are, it seems that very few choose to take that arduous journey to the mountaintop. And from time to time, great teachers have sent their students to the earthly plane in incarnate existence and gave to the world different systems or living means and ways by which the whole process of self-realization may be understood. Such teaching is the astrological influences, as an example, the four temperaments of what the ancient Greeks related to, the four worlds of the Kabbalists, the seven influences of the centers of energies or chakras that we have on our etheric body, and, as we said more recently, the seven rays. The question is, why seven and not any other number? All things have their source, as Colin earlier mentioned, from the one source, the one life. And the one life, in expression, reveals its three divine attributes. These divine attributes have been called by many different names in different philosophical and religious teachings. In the Christian faith, they are known as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In the Hindu religion, it's known as Sat, Chit, and Ananda, or Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. In the Kabbalistic teachings, it is known as Keter, as Kokma, and as Bina. In the philosophical and theosophical teachings, in human terms, they are referred to as the divine will, the divine love wisdom, and the divine creative intelligence. These correspond to the energizing principle, which is the will, the cohesive principle, which is the love wisdom, and the differentiating principle, which is the mind or the creative intelligence. These three have their reflection in the form side of existence. And the reflection, as you know, in the Hindu terms, it's known as the way that matter or form vibrates in three distinct qualities, and they are known as sattvas, rajas, and tamas, meaning as rhythm, as inertia or resistance, and as restlessness or activity. And so you have the three primary rays and the three reflections of them in form, in matter, and thereby you have the six and the one that mediates between the two, making the seventh. Or in another way, you may see it as the three divine attributes of your consciousness and the four worlds of your manifested existence, being the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And therefore 3 and 4 make 7. Thus the 7 rays are the 7 energies and forces that pervade the whole universe and manifest the 7 planes of manifested existence in the microcosmos as well as the macrocosmos. And therefore the one life expressing itself in this sevenfold rays reveals the magnificence of its beauty, goodness, and truth in all aspects of its manifested existence. These 7 rays, in the biblical terms, they are known as the 7 great Elohim, which are before the throne of the One, spoken of in the St. John's Revelations. So, these 7 principles, these 7 energies that pervade all and everything, they also conditioned the way human beings are constituted. So it is said that every human being belongs to one of these great 7 families, these great 7 groups. And these groups, let us call them group souls, evolve along one or other of these 7 avenues of evolution towards the pinnacle of self-realization. Each one of these great families is presided or overseen by one of the greater elder human beings who have attained what is known as mastery, or the freedom from the karmic limitations of incarnate existence, though may choose to take incarnate bodies as an instrument to teach and guide and facilitate that teaching to all younger brothers and sisters of humanity. These 7 beings are the lords of the 7 rays. Each one of them has their own particular quality and characteristic way by means of which he instructs his students. And so the energy and the forces of each of the rays filter down from these great lords of the rays through their students, their initiates, to all humanity, and ultimately human beings gravitate towards one or other of these great groups. And today we will endeavor to highlight the different qualities and correspondences and ways of appreciating each one of these rays, and then reflect on how we as human beings consciously and practically can begin the process of tuning in to our own spiritual soul ray and to our personality ray primarily. What will be the benefit for doing that? Naturally, the more we realize who we are and what we are, what our limitations and what our potential and possibilities are, the more effective we can be in realizing that potentiality and accelerate the process of overcoming our weaknesses and limitations. Of course, in understanding the rays of others, we can be more tolerant when we see the particular limitations that are being expressed by one or other human being in one or other relationship. More often than not, relationships break down because of lack of communication and understanding, not because of some other major differences. It seems that we are still, though we may speak the same language, though we may be able to touch one another and feel the warmth that is transferred by that touch, somehow, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, we have a great difficulty in understanding each other and understanding the particular limitations that we may have and different lineages that we may have been conditioned by, and therefore find it difficult to be tolerant with one another. We speak of great tolerance, and we speak about freeing our minds from prejudices of all manner, yet in the world there is still tremendous amount of prejudices and tremendous amount of intolerance, whether it is intolerance of religious kind, ideological, political, or even of sexual inclinations. So the rays are a means by which we can understand a little deeper the nature of our consciousness, the nature of our personal vehicles, and how the two may relate with one another and their relationship with other human beings. It is said by one of the philosophers, I believe it was Bertrand Russell, that man is in conflict with nature, man is in conflict within himself, and man is also in conflict with other men. And he has spent an enormous amount of energy trying to overcome the conflicts with nature, trying to overcome the conflicts with other human beings. But he has spent very little time trying to overcome his inner conflicts and to really transcend his own inner so-called demons or limitations, to tame his own wild beast within his own jungle. And because of that fact, there is very little success in the outer attempts to resolve the conflicts between human groups of nationalities, ethnic inclinations, or races, or religious inclinations. Even with nature, the conflicts with nature are not resolved because we do not understand the immense problem which we are creating by our tremendous rush towards technological advancement, which is to the expense of the purity and balance of the ecological system that feeds us, that maintains us, that gives us the breath and the water that we drink and breathe. And therefore, there is this crisis that we are talking about. And only when the inner conflicts are resolved, then it is possible for the outer conflicts to also be resolved. And the quicker each human being, as an individual, realizes that and steps their feet on the path towards realizing that inner conflict, resolving it, and being at peace with himself, with his destiny, with his karma, and with what he's here to do, the quicker humanity will readjust these tremendous problems that it is actually facing on all fronts that pertain to the human endeavor. So let us return to our 7 rays. The first ray, we said, corresponds to the energizing principle. Some of the qualities that belong with the first ray are the qualities of majesty, leadership, courage, strength, willfulness, purposefulness. These are the positive qualities that give a being of the first so-called ray a great sense of authority and a great sense of self-reliance. But if we look at the negative qualities, then the reverse polarity of those positive qualities will be seen in terms of pride, in terms of the glamour of self-aggrandizement or megalomania, the problem of the glamour of a savior in the world, in the political field, as our so-called Prime Minister, Mr. Blair, has attempted to manifest.
Watch it.
I have to watch it just in case we have a very active Labour Party members here. No problem. I'm sure he will not be offended calling him of the first ray. It will be a privilege for him, because in the first ray we find really the type of beings that can make great leaders if they don't fall to the glamour, can make great statements about humanity. They are tremendously majestic in their ability to command the attention of other human beings. They are explorers, pioneers in new fields. They can be great leaders, such as the figures of the past that have shined in this ray of Caesar, Alexander the Great, of the British fellow Churchill, who has made that famous speech, which is an absolute essential corresponding element to the first ray person, which is utterly one who will not be defeated and will fight to the end. As he declared, we shall fight them on the beaches, we shall fight them on the seas, we shall fight them in the air, we shall never surrender. And that speech lives on, and it is inspiring for those who truly can connect to the essence of that being who came, surfaced in this world for that specific purpose of counteracting the wave of that destructive first ray force of Hitler and his particular political dictatorship, which is the negative aspect of the first ray, where the mini dictators of the world manifest their force of personality power instead of that authority without being authoritative, which is the essence of mature beings of the first ray. Whereas an immature person is the bully in the schoolyard, continues to be the bully in the boardroom or in the bedroom, and later on becomes brow bitter at a mental level when he hasn't got the physical strength to actually do it physically. And so the first ray being is a powerful force for distraction or for initiation of new energies, new possibilities, new dynamics. And therefore it also rules the new racial emergence into the world. So from time to time, this magnificent Lord of the first ray may take physical incarnation and begin to impregnate the genetic structure, the DNA of the human being in a slightly different slant, and thereby produce a new race, not only psychologically and consciously, but also physically. And thereby we have the different races, main races and sub-races in the humanity. And they correspond also to the 7 main rays. And so the first ray is an initiating ray of a new racial stock for human beings. Naturally, he who is a first ray being will be able, by the power of their will, to overcome obstacles in their way. They definitely praise strength, value strength in others, and they find difficult to tolerate weaknesses in others. They also suffer terribly when, and they tend to sulk when they are not able to get their way. And so if you find yourself rather sulky when you are not getting your way, and your whole life is being driven by a relentless power to overcome, to break through, to manifest freedom, whether it is freedom of speech, freedom of human rights, freedom of thought, freedom of action, and your whole underlying factor is driven by that, then you may very likely be a first-ray soul individuality. Yeah? The motto of the first-ray person is there is no religio greater than power, nor its manifestation, nor greater than its manifestation in service for the good of the whole. So the first-ray being will ultimately, if he is a mature and evolved first-ray being, will manifest their power for the good of all mankind. Whereas perhaps an immature first-ray person will use the force of their personal power to bludgeon through some particular kind of vested interest that he has an involvement, whether it is economic or ideological. And so the limitations of the rays are there for each human being to get to grips with and overcome and transmute and transform in himself. A second-ray person will have qualities such as love, obviously, wisdom. Philanthropy will be a main theme through which he will endeavor to manifest that love for humanity. His whole force will be towards unity, towards cooperation in all fields of his human endeavor. And whereas a first-ray person will try and conquer and smash through and defeat his adversaries, a second-ray person will prefer to educate them and win them to his ideas, to his ways, and thereby make them in the alliance of his own volition, rather than bludgeon through with his particular ideology. A second-ray types of expression will be great philanthropists in the world, great sages, doctors, nurses, beings who sacrifice their energies to facilitate the cooperative spirit of all apparently diverse different ideologies, religions, and groups. They are the great teachers of the world, the Buddhas, the Christs, the Lao Tses, in all the different philosophies and times and epochs. These are the so-called avatars who truly manifest that magnificent love in the vertical bar of the cross as well as the horizontal bar of the cross, which the Christ is the perfect exponent when he said, "Love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart and mind, and thy neighbor as thyself." And that describes the vertical love as well as the horizontal love. And that simple injunction, which was given, has taken thousands of years of analysis and reflection, but hardly anyone is able to put their hands in their heart and say, yes, I'm able to own up to that and to really have realized it in myself. So second-rate beings are beings who would use a cooperative spirit to overcome the obstacles that they find in their way. Second-rate types are those who can be tremendously loving educators. You see, whereas an advanced and a mature first-rate being is, if he is really of the type that has authority without being authoritative, is often loved and seldom feared, whereas an immature first-rate person is often feared and seldom loved. Whereas a second-rate person, even an immature one, is easy to love them. They become the so-called Don Juans of the world, the charmers of the world, yes? They are easily likable and easily lovable. They have an effortlessness about them in sharing their loving, warm, inviting, unifying energy. And thereby they're easy to get along with. Of course, if they are very immature, they may suffer a lot because they feel very deeply what is wrong in the world, but they might not have the power to do anything about it. And so they suffer the consequences of that. But whereas if they are more advanced, then they have unfolded the loving nature and realized it as wisdom, as Madame Besant has defined. She said unity is the expression of love, and wisdom is the realization of love and unity in manifestation. And so the loving and wise being of a mature type, who is of the second ray, will make naturally great educators and great leaders of initiators of religion, initiators of systems of education towards self-realization. The motto of a second-ray person is to say that there is no religion greater than love, no conquest greater than the manifestation of that love towards the unity of all apparently diverse forces, energies, and beings. A second ray is the ray that our very own solar logos permeates his whole solar system with, and thereby he who is of a second ray in their souls has a tremendous affinity with that august, magnificent presence of the solar logos, and thereby can be able to say, as Krishna said symbolically, that I am the way, the life, and the truth, or as Christ said that, and Krishna revealed it in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna asked him, can you reveal your real essence and your real nature? And he saw the whole vast universe disappearing into the mouth of Krishna, meaning that ultimately that which permeates the universe from the solar logos will return back to the solar logos. And therefore, the second ray is the ray that conditions the evolution along the initiatory path, not only of the microcosmic humankind, but also of the planetary and solar evolution. And so the planets and suns and stars also become initiated in the cosmic greater universal wholeness, as human beings become initiated in new possibilities and new dynamics along their way of evolution. The third ray qualities are those of comprehension. The third ray corresponds to the mind of God, so to speak. It corresponds to the creative intelligence, to the differentiating principle. The third ray is a ray of truth. And those who obviously have an affinity with the third ray, they seek the truth in all aspects of their life. They are permeated, inspired, and moved by the truth. And truth for them is the goal of their evolution. To know the truth, to live the truth, to vibrate and express the truth. When they are mature types and evolved, then they are able to inspire others with the truth of that which they have realized towards manifesting the true in all living relationships. The third ray has another aspect to it, and that aspect is to know that the creative intelligence, also in the physical human sense, is symbolized by money, the symbol of money, and thereby third ray beings become very good business people. They are the great financiers of the world, they are the bankers of the world, they are the great initiates who handle the money energy. And knowing, behold, in the past, due to misconceptions and misunderstandings, the purse of the money energy was held by primarily the so-called destructive and beings who had followed not the line of evolution towards service to the solar logos, by the line of evolution that is contrary to that. And thereby it was ever more difficult for new initiations of teachings and organizations that facilitate the evolution of mankind in the free will nature to take root, because in the material world finance is important. But as more and more initiates of love and light incarnate and take on the third ray mantle, so you have great beings who make trusts and financial institutions that can promote the teaching, as there is the Lucis Trust or the Theosophical Trust, which promotes the teaching in the world non-profitably and for the good of all mankind. And so beings of the third ray are really great strategists, generals who are able to make a great strategy. They are beings who can play a very good game of chess. They love the ability to grasp the broad outlines of great abstract concepts and abstract ideas. They are also able to use their ability of abstraction to gather details in a very, very quick and fast way, and be able to then integrate them and put them forward without any kind of difficulty. It is said in one of the Theosophical books that there was a general called General Strats of South Africa, who asked his secretary to collect lots of facts and figures because he was going to be giving a lecture to political parties, and he wanted to know all the details about each one of them. She came back to him and said, sorry, but it will take years to gather all this information. So he said, don't worry about it. And the next day he gave this magnificent talk with all the facts and details and information about all the political parties and all the pros and cons of each one of them. And so after the talk, his secretary asked him and said, how did you manage in such a short space of time to do this? And he answered, he said, well, if it will take you years to gather it, then it will take them years to check what I said. So it doesn't really matter. So a third-rate person is liable to actually gloss over sometimes and just make his point and bring about lots of details who might not necessarily have been checked. Yet they are also able to be great mathematicians. So beings of historical figures of the world is such as Pythagoras, before he transferred himself to the second ray of love wisdom, Aristotle, yes, and Newton, and beings who gave to the world, such as Giordano Bruno, yeah, who were obviously some of them even to the point of their own self-sacrifice for the perpetuation of the truth in the world. Whereas the reactionary forces of the church did not accept Giordano Bruno's lectures and talks and discarded him as a heretic, and I think he burned him to the stake by the Inquisition. Nevertheless, his light shines through, for he was a great exponent of the truth, even to his own self-danger. The third-rate person's motto is there is no religion greater than truth, nor greater conquest than the manifestation of truth in all relationships and all aspects of life. Now, an immature person of the third ray may have enough intelligence to see what is wrong in the part, but not enough intelligence to see what is right in the whole. And therefore, they often become very good critiques of books, of arts, of foods. So they don't produce very much themselves, but they criticize the produce of others. And this is the negative aspect, the immature aspect of the third ray. Whereas the positive and more mature aspect of the third ray is to truly highlight the spirit of truth that liberates and frees the minds and hearts of human beings from the limitations and the criticisms and the prejudices. Yeah? So a third ray is a ray of creative intelligence and creative activity. It rules primarily the mind. It rules primarily all the greater abstract ideologies of the world. It also is in charge of all the other rays. And so the Lord of the third ray is known as the Maha Kohan, or the great Kohan, or the great leader, who is also oversees the Kohans of the other rays of the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. So let us reflect on the fourth ray. The fourth ray qualities are those of mediation per excellence. In other words, because they mediate between the three primary and the three secondary ray, fourth ray beings are very good mediators. Therefore, in all fields of work where it involves mediation, it involves diplomacy, it involves the ability to adapt, so thereby we will have actors who adapt all the time to different roles. We will have the quality of directing theater and drama and play. We would have broadcasters and communicators who are able to adapt to different environments and gather their information. And generally, they are able really to adapt to any of the other rays qualities, but not go as deeply into them. They also can be very good artists. They can be very creative and very sensitive beings. Sophocles was a fourth ray being. Wagner, a fourth ray being, with obviously a seventh ray element in his constitution as well. Mozart, a fourth ray being. Leonardo da Vinci, a fourth ray being. So the quality of a fourth ray is one who can excel in the artistic field of life. The motto of a fourth ray might be, there is no religion greater than beauty, nor a conquest greater than manifesting that beauty to shine through the whole universe. And so they are easily glamorized by the appearance of beauty. And so the glamour of a fourth ray being can be that of beauty, or getting lost in the conflict and the struggle of the opposites, because he's in the middle of the opposites of the consciousness and the form side of existence. And thereby the principle of seeking harmony through conflict is another definition of this fourth ray, seeking harmony through conflict. So they will be beings who will suffer if they live in a non-harmonious environment for too long. They are beings who get very frustrated if they are not able to be understood well. So they suffer greatly if they feel they have been misunderstood and their way has not been accepted. Fourth ray beings can also be very good at diplomatic relationships and being able to say much without saying anything. Which is a definition of a diplomat by a diplomat himself. One of the great diplomats, when he was asked, how do you define diplomacy? He said, the art of saying many things without actually saying anything of real importance that can be checked on. So, going back to the fifth ray now, the fifth ray quality is really similar to the third ray being, but now of a more concrete nature. Whereas the third ray being is more interested in the ideas, in the realm of ideas, the fifth ray being is more interested in the concrete facts and figures. Therefore, his qualities are qualities of observation, attention to detail, concentration, perseverance in the pursuit of truth. Therefore, they make very good investigators in the police. Yes, they make very good policemen. They make very good judges, for they have a legal mind to grasp the details. They make very good legal eagles. They are capable of handling concrete numerological equations, and therefore they can make very good accountants, engineers. So the engineering, accountancy, police, and mathematical teachers, mathematicians, and beings who have in their great essence the legal system in the world, either as judges or lawyers or solicitors, they may very well have a major fifth ray vibration in their constitution. A fifth ray person suffers greatly if their facts and figures are found to be wrong. They prize logic so above all else that if they are caught in their logic to be wanted or false, they suffer greatly. They cannot handle that kind of criticism, although they can be very critical themselves, and therefore liable to the negative aspects of prejudice, high criticism, and they can be very stubborn because they are so right in their logic, and so they can defend their position or their way very, very robustly. They use deductive argument as the means of prizing out of people information, or cramming other people's minds with information. And so, a fifth ray being, motto, in its highest sense, is to say there is no religion greater than science, no conquest greater than the placing of the discoveries and inventions of that science in service to all mankind. But of course, a more immature being will use facts and figures to browbeat others or to prove how clever he is in parties of one kind or another. And so it is important that we understand that each of the rays has its positive and also its negative characteristic. The 6 ray qualities draw out of the second ray, for it is a reflection of the second ray, as the 5th ray is a reflection of the 3rd ray, yes, and the 7th ray is a reflection of the 1st ray, so the 6th ray is a reflection of the 2nd ray. So the qualities of the 6th ray are those of devotion, those of loyalty, those of the ability to persevere through an idea that they have been inspired by to the end. The negative element can turn to fanaticism. Therefore, an immature 6th ray person could easily become a terrorist for apparently a good cause, because they have been so gripped by that particular idea, they have devoted so much of themselves to it that they have fallen to the glamour of being fanatical about it. But they also can be utterly devoted to the ideal, and thus they make the great examples of the flowers of human evolution, which are known as the saints of the world. So such beings as Saint Teresa, Saint Catherine, Saint Francis of Assisi, Jesus, were all of the 6th ray, devoted beings to the religious idea that they found their hearts being caught and inspired by. So a 6th ray being is one who will be very, very loyal, and therefore they will suffer gravely if they are accused of treachery, if they are accused of treason, if they are accused of disloyalty. That will be a great source of suffering for them, and naturally a 6th ray person vibrates with great deal of enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is a Greek word that means being at one with God, and the ideal of a 6th ray person is to be at one with his beloved, which is God, in a religious sense, or in any other sense. The beloved may be the husband or the wife, or it may be the beloved an inspiring leader or inspiring teacher. They make tremendously effective servants, and they make those who are known as the great martyrs in all the different fields. The martyrs for freedom, the martyrs for religion, the martyrs for ideological breakthroughs, such as this wonderful being for civil rights of the blacks in America, Martin Luther King, who was very powered by a 6th ray quality. What would be the motto of a 6th ray person? That there is no religion greater than devotion, and no conquest greater than that of being at one with one's beloved. And so a 6th ray quality is a fundamentally wonderful quality that can give the enthusiasm which you can manifest in all the different fields of life. For enthusiasm is that energy that can bridge the gap of separateness towards unity with others' ideas and other human beings. And finally, on the 7th ray, the qualities of the 7th ray are those of chivalry, like the knights of Serapha Pendragon. There is a quality of a majestic, grandiose nature, a princely quality, A seventh ray being has as his prime goal to manifest order. And therefore they suffer greatly in disorderly environments. A seventh ray being can also manifest that great quality of organization. Therefore they are initiators of new organizations. They can be great teachers of the second ray that give spiritual, inspiring teaching, but they may not be very good organizers, and unless they have a seventh ray lieutenant or a seventh ray helper who will take on the mantle and organize a structure that is effective to behold the inspirational idea, knowing, behold, that inspiration more probably will quickly fade after the departure of the one who has initiated. Whereas if they had also an organizational capacity of the seventh ray, then they would have been able to organize a structure that they can channel their spiritual energies into, and that kind of structure will be a structure that is beautiful and good and true, and truly can embody spiritual ideas. And so a seventh ray person's goal is to bring about beautiful organizations which serve and facilitate the evolution of all the species of human beings. For a seventh ray person is aware truly that he has a responsibility not only for the humankind, but also for the fauna and floral kingdom and mineral kingdoms upon this planet. And so it is also known as the ray that governs the Deva kingdom. The Devas are the angels and archangels, which are really the intelligences behind all phenomena, whether the phenomena is climatic changes, whether the phenomena is environmental changes, or the phenomena are certain appearances and disappearances, or materializations and dematerializations. All these are assisted by the seventh ray devas and beings, who are the great builders of the universe. So the physical structure of our physical bodies, we think that it is only in the womb of the mother, independent of this intelligence, that it is done. But the Holy Spiritual Presence, through its intelligences of the devas and angels and archangels, cooperates and facilitates the growth of the fetus until its birth, and even can facilitate it beyond that if humanity will take the time and the care to learn how to communicate with these devas, which are angelic beings evolving parallel with human beings. And indeed a seventh ray person, if he is of an evolved order and if he is a mature being, will have the majestic ability to command legions of devas and angels and archangels who selflessly will run to fulfill the bidding of a seventh ray evolved being. And therefore the Lord of the seventh ray is known as the Lord of great ceremonial order. And so beings who love pageantry and love ceremonial activities, whether it's of the military type, whether it is of a spiritual type, as in the Masonic lodges of the world, or any other kind of ceremonial work, they all fall under the seventh ray quality. So the seventh ray motto is really order. So before I offer you the opportunity to ask questions, I would like now to tune in for a little while to the possibility of how we can actually understand our own ray more effectively. Obviously, one of the first steps is to look at your character and to make a clear analysis of your positive and negative qualities, and then look whether those fall in affinity with the first ray, positive and negative qualities, or the second ray, or the third ray, or the fourth ray, the fifth, the sixth, or the seventh. You may also ask the question, what is really the underlying winning way in my life? Is it a tremendous driving force to overcome all obstacles and to drive myself through towards my goals? Is it an innate awareness that my happiness depends upon the happiness of everyone else, and therefore lovingly cooperates with everyone towards the goal? Or is it that of prizing truth and logic above all else? And if the driving force is one or other of these, then naturally you will be falling under the first, the second, or the third ray, respectively. Another way that you can also reflect as to the which ray you actually are is to look at what method you use to overcome your weaknesses and limitations. What method you use to overcome your weaknesses and limitations. There are primarily three main ways. One is the first ray type, which will nip it in the bud before it gets a chance to grow. So as soon as it recognizes, immediately by the force of the will, it will actually not allow it to express itself, will not give it space in its consciousness, will not give it the microphone to grab hold of and speak. Will say, no, it's mine, I will not let you be. A second ray person will more prefer what is called the alternative way, where it will sublimate the force by redirecting it from being expressed from its negative expression towards a more positive, uplifting self-expression. So instead of vain glory for the self, it may direct it towards the glory of the divine. Yes. So instead of actually expressing anger, he may express the compassion towards those that are not able to manifest that which he wants them to manifest. So he will express compassion and endeavor to re-educate them more thoroughly and more appropriately. Or finally, the third ray type, who will overcome by exhausting that weakness in themselves. Just like children get bored of a particular toy and then they no longer want to play with it, but when you first give it to them and it's a new toy, you try to take it away from them and you'll see how attached they become. But once they have used up and they have exhausted their interest in it, they can easily let go of that. So that is the exhaustive way, where you let something become exhausted in you. It is said in one of the Theosophical books of Light on the Path that there is a giant weed that grows in the heart of every human being. Only the strong can rip it out of its roots, and the heart will bleed, and you will feel as if the whole life ebbs away. The weak must wait until this weed grows, flourishes, and eventually bears its fruit and withers and dies. And so a person who chooses to take their nature in hand and look at this giant weed that grows in the heart, which is nothing else but selfishness. Selfishness and the glamour of separateness that seeks to make profit by the sweat of others, or make profit at the expense of others, or seeks to undermine the produce of others for their own self-glory by whatever means. Selfishness is the giant weed of the heart. And greater knowledge of the rays can enable a human being to find their limitations and find the negative qualities of this giant weed and begin to overcome them. One of the other ways that you can directly practice to learn how to find the ray in another human being, or even in your own self, if you are doing it for yourself, look in the mirror and see what is coming back from the mirror towards you. Is it an energy that is very firm, or is it an energy that is very soft? If it's a very firm energy, then it more likely falls under the masculine so-called rays of 1, 3, 5, and 7. Or if it is a more softer energy that comes back, then it's more on the line of 2, 4, and 6. If, on the other hand, you are able to also look and see what color you can see behind the eyes. I'm not talking about the color of the physical eyes. I'm talking about the color behind the eyes. And normally, if you actually, you can even do it now, turn towards one another for a moment and look at the eyes of the other person and just choose anybody and just take a quick glance in the eyes and see what kind of color do you perceive behind the eyes. And there may appear one that is predominant and then another that is secondary. Just take a moment and look at each other. Just choose one. You don't have to take your glasses off because you're not looking at the real color of the physical type. Okay. The thing to do is not to analyze the color, but to just look and allow the color to come towards you. So, is it like an arrow that coming towards you when you look at another's eyes, or is it like a soft breeze that comes towards you? If it's like a soft breeze, it's more likely is of the feminine rays 2, 4, and 6. If it's like an arrow penetrating towards you, then it's more likely that it will be on the masculine rays. Now, if you want to check which one is actually the soul ray or the personality ray, an easy way of looking at that is seeing the color behind the left eye or the right eye. So if you look at the color behind the left eye, that will give you the color of the soul ray. If you look at the color of the right eye, that will give you the color of the personality ray. And these two are the main rays in our constitution. There are, of course, the rays of the physical body, the astral body, and the mental body, and so on and so forth. But primarily, if you can gather the intelligence that will yield to you the truth, whether your particular note of the ray is the soul ray, the first ray, the second or the third, and the personality ray, then you will be able to more intelligently yield your personality to the purpose of your own soul. For each personality is in essence an instrument for the purpose of the soul. And when the personality battles with the soul, ultimately it will be the soul that will win. Yes? And often on the path towards spiritual evolution, there comes a time where that battle rages very powerfully. And this is the battle of Kurukshetra, of Arjuna and Krishna and all this array of forces that was before them. And he weakened and he said, I don't want to fight anymore. That's the personality. Do we not come up to a point at some times when the very force of obstacles that we are encountering in our endeavor to evolve causes us to say, oh, it's too many forces, they are friends, I don't want to fight anymore. And the soul arises and says, wake up and fight. Find the warrior within you. Let him do the battle, for he cannot fail. It is in its nature to be victorious. And that is the essence of the soul. The spiritual soul will always be victorious. So, the left eye corresponds to the right brain, and the right brain is more predominantly open to the soul vibrations, and therefore it will give you the quality of the soul ray. The right eye corresponds to the left hand brain, which is more the logical and concrete aspects of mental activity, and thereby it's more easily used by the personality. And so you will find that one of the eyes of people that you look at them might be more hard, another one might be more soft. You will find that one is like an arrow coming towards you, and the other may be more like a soft breeze, more often than not. There are, of course, the times when the soul ray and the personality ray are on the same line. i.e. you may have a second ray soul and a sixth ray personality. That then makes a very, very powerful healer, a being who is able to directly channel the healing energies through their personality, for it is the soul that is the great healer in our constitution. It is the soul that carries the healing vibrations. Or there may be a great leader whose personality is a seven ray and his soul is a first ray. Such a being is a being who has the organizational capacity and the inspirational leadership ability, and thereby is able to cause an army to march for thousands of miles, like Alexander the Great, who was a being with a seventh ray personality and the first ray soul, who was almost worshipped as God by his soldiers and conquered the known world of the times without planes and great other means, but on foot with his soldiers all the way down to India from Greece. A great feat, not only because he conquered all the then known armies, but also because he organized educational systems in those places, because that was his way of bringing the light of Greece to all other beings, and his conquest was not for the purpose of just war and profit, but also for education and cross-fertilization. He asked his generals to marry with the locals and to naturally mingle and bring about that great interaction of different civilizations. So, are there any questions that you may have? Yes?
You talked obviously about the seven rays. May I suggest one other, correct me if I'm wrong, but being a Christian myself, and having obviously read the Bible myself, having read the Bible to a certain extent, is it not true to say that according to the Christian Bible, God created the world in 7 days? I mean, according to God.
Yeah, sure.
Since he created the world in 7 days, surely is that not shall we say, a master number also?
Yes, it is. It is. One very good way of obviously tuning in to the frequencies of the seventh rays is to try and collect as many examples of sevenfold things, like the 7 days, the seven great races, the seven planets, the seven layers of the skin, the seven openings in the face, the seven chakras, the seven centers of energy, the seven churches that it speaks on the Bible in the Revelations, the seven colors of the rainbow, the seven notes of the diatonic scale. Yes, wonderful. And you go on, and as you tune in to making more and more examples of these sevenfold things, the seven manifested layers of existence, the seven dimensions as they are called, yes, the seven senses, 5 of which have already evolved, 1 which is in the beginning of its evolution, known as intuition, and the 7th which will come to pass when this current human wave comes to its fulfillment. We are only just over the halfway mark. We are just over the fifth sub-rays of the fifth main rays. So we are just going to be unfolding the 6 sub-rays of the fifth main rays, which is happening all over the world already.
Is that the Aquarian Age?
The Aquarian Age is a cycle of approximately 2,160 years, yeah? Which already has started.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is said that one age is primarily and predominantly influenced by one or other of the rays, whereas the last 2 to 2,500 years ago were primarily, predominantly influenced by the 6th ray. Now the 7th ray will actually come of age and bring about new types of art, new types of organizations, new types of dynamics of serving the greater human family. Yeah? Yeah. Yes.
9 digits.
10  10 digits. 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 10 digits the triangle of 10 dots. 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is, he called it the Sacred Tetrakis.
7 beats 1 at a higher level.
Correct, yes.
But it's a different system then, isn't it?
Well, there are different systems. There is the 12-fold system, the 10-fold system, the 7-fold system. But yes, but they are all interrelated and interdependent. And he who understands fully one of the systems is able to also understand the other. Because really, the three primary attributes and aspects of consciousness and the 4 worlds make the 7 in addition. But when you multiply the 3 in the 4 worlds, 3 folds make 12. Yeah? So the 12-fold system and the 7-fold system have a dynamic relationship. Yes, sir, over there in the back.
Somehow you can feel that something is missing from the picture, the bigger picture. We just, in spite of us listening to something that is very profound and very meaningful, and this is the most clearest I've ever heard this subject expressed. I've never heard it expressed so clear and concise, you know. But in spite of that, there's something, and it goes back to why I came here, you see. And but it seems to me there's lots of things happen, and you can never see the whole thing. The jigsaw puzzle, and it makes you feel, in spite of the fact that it's so clear and concise, you know, like you look at this world and you see various types of electronic things, like mobile phones.
Yeah. I receive the intent of what you want to say. There is no doubt that within each human being lies that insatiable thirst, unquenchable thirst for being able to see the whole picture, being able to appreciate the wholeness of life. Yet, it is not possible at one moment, at one time, for that wholeness to actually be transferred from one mind to another. It is only possible to have reflections of the diamond truth and not able to grasp the whole truth. Although, the more we evolve and the more we unfold that intuitive capacity, we will be able to see the underlying unity that pervades the diversity and the apparent separateness in the world. So yes, there is something missing. And what is missing is a cohesive, inspirational quality that allows us to go beyond our racial, our ideological, our religious conditioning, and really see that the whole human family is part of the one family. And just like an elder brother looks after the younger brothers and sisters until they are able to take care of themselves, so it must be for the more mature and evolved and richer beings must take care of the younger members of the family. But unfortunately, that's too simple.
Something transcends time and space, and that's what does it.
Yes, it does. And that is your divine self. And when you are able to tune in to that divine self, you go beyond time and space. You are able to live in the eternal. You are able to truly be free from the limitations of time and space. Well, it doesn't kill it off. It just somehow blocks its ability to express itself. That is why it is necessary to unlearn a lot of the conditioning that we have filled our minds with before we are able to step our feet on the path of true spiritual evolution, because that which we have learned in the outer world may be useful to handle the outer world, but it is useless in appreciating the wholeness of the essence and the spirit of life. It is trained very well to deal with the letter of things, but not with the spirit and the essence of things. So I understand your calling, and indeed, to the best of my ability, it will be my privilege to endeavor to give as much food for thought for that inner calling, as I have been endeavoring to do. But the limitation of the spoken word is that we can only have so much time in which You can only put so many concepts and ideas to make the whole picture, yes? And it is the idea of such a lecture is not to be comprehensively imparting the vastness of the 7 rays, but to create greater interest for greater research by the individuals to become more inspired to do so, yeah? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
Can numerology be related to the 7 rays?
Yes, of course. It can be related. But it is, again, a vast subject matter that will be best be dealt with at another time. That might be another lecture to give on numerology and how numbers affect our life. Pythagoras said that the universe, the edifice of the universe is founded upon the reality of numbers. And Plato later said that God geometrizes himself in the universe. And therefore, geometry deals with the space of universe, whereas numbers deal with the motion of energy in the universe. And so mathematics and geometry are the means by which consciousness is able to appreciate and quantify the energy motions and the creation of shapes and forms in manifesting that energy in the world. So yes, numerology is absolutely corresponding with the 7 rays. That is what these 7 numbers are. And each of the numbers is like a law. The 7 rays can be called the 7 primary laws by means of which all things have come into being, by means of which all things will fulfill their inherent potentiality. Yeah?
A lot of psychics use astrology and numerology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man behind there.
Yes.
The mauve shirt. You had your hand up just a moment ago.
Yeah.
Oh, are you going to give us any clues on how to interpret the colours that we saw when we looked into people's eyes?
Yes. On the mental level, the colors are blue for the first ray, yellow for the second ray, rose for the third ray, white for the fourth ray, green for the fifth ray, red for the sixth ray, and lilac violet for the seventh ray. You do see I'm not using the colors of the rainbow in this. We are talking about the mental quality and appreciating the ray at the mental level as you are looking behind the eyes, okay? But if you were to talk about the physical appearance of the rays, then you can use the rainbow colors, and then it will be red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, and violet in terms of the actual corresponding with the rays. But it is easier to use the mental color correspondence I have given you, because that is what you will more easily perceive behind the eyes when you look at a person. Okay? That is why I have suggested this mental appreciation of the rays. Anyone else? Yes.
Could there be other rays that come onto your ray and either be positive or negative? People have,
Well, each of the rays has the 7 sub-rays of itself. And so ultimately, you have the 49 minor rays. Yes? So each ray in itself, in its sub-rays, endeavors to unfold the qualities of the other rays. And so a first ray will have a sub-rays, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. And thereby, you get the 49, 7 sevens make 49, the 7 sub-rays. So naturally, your own rays can be influenced or conditioned by rays of others. So if you have a very first-ray teacher when you were at school, naturally the influence and force of the first-ray teacher may actually condition for a while your particular ray. But ultimately, your own soul ray will break free from that, and then you will experience that conditioning element in you and that underlying deeper vibration of your own qualitative ray. Yeah? Yes, my dear.
Does the soul have to go through all the rays?
No, the soul primarily does not change its own ray in a frequent just like the personality does. The personality in each incarnation may change its ray, thereby offering the soul the qualities and appreciations and forum and role of extracting different ray qualities from it and unfolding different possibilities in itself. But the soul itself remains in its own particular ray until such time that perhaps it has evolved to such a level that it's now able to tune in and find what is known as the monadic ray, and thereby adapt itself to the monadic ray. The monadic ray is a ray that ordinary human beings cannot really tune into. It is only for advanced initiates and masters who are able to tune into the monadic ray. The monadic ray really is the God from which the soul emanates from. And that is the absolute ray through which that entity that you are has individualized in its involutionary world, and then its return journey of evolution to the Father. Is the so-called Father in heaven, the monadic ray. But if you know the Son, then you can know the Father. So first know the Son, which is the spiritual soul ray, and through the Son you can find the Father ray. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Because there is a ray soul group which all units that form that soul group belong to. There are 7 such grand soul ray groups. There are so-called 7 heavenly men, the idea of the human being, and that idea of the human being vibrates in those 7 particular ray frequencies. And when you individualize and you pass through the idea of one such being, then your life force is given the color, the frequency, the essence, the attribute of that particular quality of the ideal through which you have passed. Yes? And so ultimately this Lord of the Ray that in the spiritual kingdom of human beings oversees the evolution of that group soul is that ideal and has perfected the vibration of that soul ray to that level that can be the ideal for all other units of consciousness that evolve in that group. But ultimately when you reach that, then you may go beyond it and change your soul ray to the monadic ray, which might be and always is one of the primary 3 rays. So the monadic ray will fall primarily to 1, 2, or 3. Okay? Yeah.
Knowing one's ruling planet in astrology.
Yes.
Will that tell one what one's ray?
Well, that can help because, of course, the planets are very much related with the rays. So you can correspond Vulcan with the first ray. You can put Jupiter with the second ray. You can put Saturn with the third ray. You can put Mercury with the 4th ray. You can put Venus with the 5th ray. You can put Mars with the 6th ray and Uranus with the 7th ray. The planet Earth with the 3rd ray. Yeah? Neptune can also be put with the 6th ray. And so naturally, if you are predominantly influenced by one of these planets and you have the qualities corresponding to that ray, you can make that equation and that connection. Yeah? I mean, the rays manifest in everything that we do. The way that a first ray will go and buy something from a shop will be very different than the way of the second ray goes and buys a person. I mean, a first ray person buying a car will be more interested in the power under the bonnet. A second ray person will be more interested in what the the salesman has to say about the particular model and all of the additional elements that come to equate it. And if the salesman is a very nice person, then you may end up buying a different car than the one that you had intended to in the first place. Whereas a third-rate person will be more interested in the financial package that comes with the car and the particular usefulness and functionality of the car. Yes. Whereas a fourth-rate person more than likely will like the color and will buy the car because of the color. Whereas a sixth-rate person will become one who loves a type of a car and nothing will change their mind. They're totally devoted. They are the people that belong to clubs of cars and they are, classics. They have the badge and they're very proud of it and they will never change, whether it is a Morgan or whether it is a midget or whatever type of a car. Yeah. Did I miss the fifth? What the fifth will do? Well, in buying a car, you're talking about not the details, because I talked about the details, but in buying a car, a fifth-rate person is one who will have a little board, just like this one, and a piece of paper, and especially if he's buying a second-hand car, say, a scratch in the near side, a bump at the back, and he will make a whole big list out of all the details, and then he will argue about the price. Not because, I can't offer you anymore. My board tells me not to offer you anymore. So it's not him making the decision, it's the details on his board that make the decision. So that will be a fifth-rate person. Yeah? Whereas a seventh-rate person will like the majesty that the car, the ethos, the wonderfulness of that will actually give it. And even if you try to offer him packages and things, he may not buy the car because price is no object. There's a kind of princely quality about it. A status. It's very, very important. Status is absolutely important, especially if the person is an immature seventh ray. The whole status ethos is a very vital thing.
One last question. Can you put your hand up?
Yes, Vivian. Okay. And you were putting your hand, so it will be just you and this lady. Let me just talk with the lady and then we'll close it. Yeah, ladies first. Yes. Yeah, because Venus is often made all very female and is given a female appearance, but in its dynamic force, it's a very mentally orientated force, and it truly is the planet that governs the evolution of mind. They are called the lords of mind, the Venusians, and truly it is a fifth-ray planet, yes? So we're talking about energy, not appearance, okay? Yeah.
Very personally then, speaking very personally, what would Pisces ray come under? Since I'm a Pisces, what ray would that indicate?
Well, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, yes, and therefore Neptune may give you a six-ray quality, and the Piscean age has also been governed by the six-ray. Therefore, a six-ray element will be very present in you. Yes. So, okay.
And we've gone over time as well, just a little bit, but it's been so fascinating, and I think we should give a great round of applause.
Okay. Thank you.